If you're looking for something that's going to be an absolutely excellent starter for the new Flashback League coming up, or even the new Atlas expansion that we're getting here sometime soon, look no further. This build is insanely easy to get going, the items are almost always cheap early on, and not only can this build absolutely melt bosses almost instantly, with a few key upgrades you can actually turn this into a monstrous clear character as well with some very, very good survivability. This is the Pyroclast Mines Saboteur. Hey guys, Big Ducks here, and welcome back to the channel. Now, I know what you're thinking. Big Ducks playing mines, he has talked bad about mines for longer than I can remember. What is going on? Is hell freezing over? Well, no, I just decided that I wanted to renew my hatred for mines, and honestly, my mind's kind of been changed a little bit, just a little bit. Now, with the change to being able to put detonate on your left click, that has actually solved most of my issues that I had with mines. So this character has insanely good clear once you invest in the ring. It has ridiculous bossing, that's with a 5 link and just some random simple gear. The only item that you really need is a tremor rod, and those are almost always like 1 chaos early on in the league, and then you can just get like the 5 link prophecy, and it's extremely easy to get going, very simple to gear, very, very powerful with almost no gear, and I mean, what else can I really say about it? Now remember guys, if you enjoy my content, make sure to like this video so that more people can see it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this. So now let's take a look at a couple of the highlights that we had from the leveling and gearing process of this build over at twitch.tv/bigducks, where I streamed all of the leveling of this build, and then we'll get into the guide. And like, I really haven't spent that much on the build, right? There is so much more that I could spend. I don't even have like good jewels or anything yet, right? Like there's so much more that we could spend on this build. And if we got even more, it would be even more ridiculous. Bossing is such a non-issue for miners. Yeah, dude. It just seems insane. How does your build interact with Tremor Rod? Is it just there for the redetonations? It can link, like, it can actually link to it, you know? Like, it does actually work, like the blast chains, they do work. You see how much damage he starts taking after a bit? Like, the consecutive detonations do actually work. Yeah, he had so much damage reduction there, it was actually kind of insane. Damage is still not bad by any means, though. Like, you guys see when I get that going, the damage is pretty nuts. Are heists or delving more profitable in your opinion? I mean, it depends completely on how you're doing either of those things. Like, are you deep delving? Are you just like spamming random heists? Like, what are you doing, you know? Damage is pretty damn good though. Not gonna lie, that damage is really solid. Yeah, the only, oh God, what the f is even going on right now? I can't see what's happening with the boss, dude. Will we be able to save our boy today? Will it happen? All right, here we go. Just scorched earth policy. Can't be saved if we kill him ourselves. Looks like it didn't work though. Feels bad, man. Yeah, I mean, the damage seems pretty solid. The only problem with Cirrus is that he moves around a lot, so I'm not gonna be able to get like the big blast chains on him. Oh yeah, just stand in the storm, Cirrus. It's fine. No problem. You just stand in the storm, dude. It's fine. But yeah, this feels like. I also got the coin flip. You notice he's not doing the meteor phase? He's not doing the meteor phase at all right now. So I got good coin flip, boys. I mean, that was super easy though. All right, we got the first one killed properly. Ooh, this one might not. Okay, we did get the second one killed properly. That's all that really mattered. We just had to get the first one. Since we got the first one down so easily, yeah, that wasn't bad. There we go. I got the bleed on me though. Yep, already almost dead. No problem. Can't see shit, Captain. I honestly just kind of hate how much Shaper teleports. Like, honestly, that's one of the biggest things that I hate about this fight. Almost got hit by that. Another puddle, dude? At least they're all in the same spots, but still. Very annoying. Oh, come on. Get... I literally, it was like a 10-second cast, dude. Oh, it might have been a mistake to go in here. I just have to focus on not dying to the suck. not too bad, but the biggest problem that I ran into was just the fact that, like, with this on, with Astral Projector on, I actually think that might have made the fight harder. So I just want to remind you guys, there are timestamps down below in the description of all of the different sections of this video. Make sure that you go check them out if you want to go to any specific part of the video. Alright boys, so this is the Pyroclast Mine Saboteur. Now while I knew that this was an insanely powerful boss character, I didn't realize that with the change to the way that you can do left click detonate mines now, that it actually would be pretty fun too. Now I haven't spent that much time or money on this character. I want to make sure that you guys are clear. I have not pushed this character that far. The most that I've done is gotten the 6-link Tremor Rod. The rest of this gear, besides maybe the Astral Projector, is not that expensive. These Machinimits are simply a defensive upgrade. They don't actually do anything for making the build kill faster. And the rest of the gear here is pulled from other characters. I think this Comb's Heart was like 20C when I bought it for just a random corrupted one. The Astral Projector was about an Exalt, but this isn't required for the build. This just makes your quality of life while clearing go up quite a bit. This is just gear that I pulled from another character. We do have this enchant, which I managed to randomly get when we did Uber Lab. I just threw it on whatever helmet that I was wearing, and that's what we got. So, but beyond that, some pretty simple gear. Nothing crazy on the skill tree. It's just a very typical mine build. I've got some just basic like crit multi and life jewels. But I want to show you guys a map. This is going to be a tier 16 map. It is an Arachnid Tomb. We're going to be doing it with a Rusted Harbinger, Perondus, and Breach Scarab. We are also going to be doing this with 4 sextants, you'll see here. This is additional monsters, additional monsters, additional monsters, and additional monsters. So this is going to be a huge, dense packed map. And on top of that, this is Awakener 8. We're going to be running this with Beyond as well as an Einhar mission. So this is going to be a very difficult map, and you'll see that even with just a little bit of gear, we can still clear relatively comfortably, and the boss damage of this build is pretty solid. Even in like cases where you don't have ideal conditions for bossing, it is very good. Now, the major thing about this build in particular that made it... I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of mine builds, but the thing that did it for me with this build was the fact that with a left-click detonate, you can actually just kind of go, right? You don't have to worry too much of, oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm not sure what I was fighting there, but that was a little bit ridiculous. Anyways, you can just kind of click and go, right? I'm not min-maxing the mines on this in any way whatsoever. I could be doing way more if I was manually clicking the mines and doing all that kind of extra stuff. We could even be doing more damage. Because this build utilizes the staff here, the Tremor Rod, which gives us the Blast Chain mine support. What that means is that the more mines that you detonate in sequence, the more damage it essentially gets. You'll see a little bit more of that when we get to the boss, and I'll show you the way that that works. But for pretty much everything else when it comes to this build, it really is just go. I have not had to worry too much. Normally, mine builds have not been very fun for me, but I kind of have been converted a little bit, at least for this build in particular. It does very good single target, it has very good clear once you get the ring, and even without the ring, the clear is still perfectly fine. This is an insane map, right? I mean, a absolutely ridiculous map. And we're still clearing perfectly fine, no issues. I mean, this has got Beyond, and I've spawned like 5 Beyond bosses already, I think, at this point. Not really going out of my... Oh, boy. Yeah, you can kind of see that it heals quite quickly. This is like a... This is a dangerous boy. All right, yeah, so you can kind of see it doesn't take very much damage because it has so much blind and defensive layers and dodge and all kinds of good stuff. It heals up quite well because of these Machinimits, which aren't that expensive, especially this late into the league. They can be a little bit expensive early on, but I mean, like... I paid like 25C, I think, for mine right now. Very, very solid defensively once you make those little tiny upgrades, and even without all of that, it is insanely strong. So yeah, I mean, an insanely powerful build that is quite tanky. I mean, you have a ton of recovery through the Machinimits and the just built-in recovery that you get through the Ascendancy. I mean, even in insane maps like this, where everything is just absolutely going to annihilate you, we still seem to be doing quite well. Now, it's no surprise that mine builds are good. Everyone has known that for quite some time, but it's always surprising to me when you get one of these builds that can do pretty much all of the content in the game for so insanely cheap. Now, I'm going to clear out some of these enemies real quick, and then I'll show you what's going on with the boss in particular. So, a few more enemies here that I want to kill. Man, did I spawn a Beyond boss in here too? I guess I did. All right, I'm probably not gonna get much time to actually, okay, so here we go. Now, the way that this works on bosses, it's gonna be a little rough because of the way this boss works, but the idea is that we're going to throw down a whole bunch of mines, and then we're going to begin the detonate sequence, and then continue holding right click. And you can kind of see that wasn't a great example of it, unfortunately, because this boss is kind of annoying. But you could probably see in some of the previous highlights that I gave you, where when you throw down all of these mines, right, so we get our full set of mines before the boss spawns, you detonate them and then you continue holding right click, you'll get this giant cascade of mines that happens, yeah? Like you'll see they just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And the cool thing about it is that because this staff gives us Blast Chain Mine, which is this right here, it makes it so that supported skills deal percentage more damage for each mine in the detonation sequence before it. So as long as you make sure that you don't click the detonate button more than once in the chain, it will continue to gain 5% more damage for each mine that you're throwing down. And because we are using Minefield, we're going to be throwing 5 mines at a time. So the idea is that each cast here, by the end of that set of mines, is gaining 25% more damage. And then as you keep going, it's gaining more and more and more and more damage. And as all of these mines goes out, it's gaining 5% each and every time. So it keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, and it ends up being a ridiculous amount of damage. So now that I've shown you a map, now that I've shown you some of the endgame bosses that we've killed in the highlights, I want to talk briefly about the gear and the skill tree, and then we'll move on to the leveling stuff. So the gear itself is not too insanely important. I'm using a Comb's Heart simply because we already have the Tremor Rod, which is a 7 link, and then on top of that, we don't need any more links, so we get a ton of fire and life from this chest piece. That's what allows us to have almost 6,000 life. We don't have that much life in the tree, and I could get more with jewels, but we are using Tremor Rod. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. One, it's insanely cheap. 2, it gives us a whole bunch of stats that we want, like spell damage. It gives us +2 to the level of the socketed spell gems, which is huge. It also gives us the line, mines can be detonated an additional time. This is essentially just doubling our damage. This staff is almost best in slot. There's only like, in the low life version that you can make of this, you can get like a shield and a wand with insane stats that can be better, but 99 times out of 100, Tremor Rod's gonna be the one. Now, you can do this with just a 5 link and be perfectly fine. I cleared all the way up through, I think, tier 16 maps pretty comfortably with a 5 link. You can just get the 5 link prophecy, buy any random Tremor Rod, and use the 5 link prophecy on that. 5 link prophecy is like 10C, I think, most of the time, even early on in the league. The only other things that I want to talk about, because the rest of this gear is just kind of whatever, I'm using a Dying Sun Flask to give us additional projectiles, so each time that one of these pops, it shoots out a couple additional projectiles. Besides all the rest of this gear, I want to talk about Astral Projector. Astral Projector is not required for this build, however, it is very good. Now, the reason that this is that when you cast mines in general, they typically cast from wherever they're spawned. So if we zoom in here and you see that I detonate, you'll notice that the mines actually detonate from wherever the mine itself is. With Astral Projector, what ends up happening is that no matter where the mines are, if say an enemy is standing like over here where I'm at, and these mines are over here, when they detonate, it will actually detonate underneath the enemy. It is a huge difference in clear and quality of life. It means that you don't have to aim the mines, you just toss them out and go. Now, this item can be relatively expensive, keep that in mind, but this is like your goal item that you're looking to upgrade towards later. The other item I want to talk about is Machina. I wasn't 100% sure about this early on, but when I did switch over to it, I realized how good it is. This gives you 1% of your damage dealt by your mines is leached to you as life. Now, normally you cannot leech from mines because mines aren't actually you attacking. That means that anything that is on kill or anything that is on hit does not work for this build. Mines are not considered you. That also means that you are immune to reflect. These made the build feel almost invulnerable most of the time. You saw in that ridiculous map that we were running, I pretty much didn't have problems with healing back up to full constantly. There was almost no issues. These can be a little bit expensive, especially very early on in the league, but these 2 items are not required by any means. They are simply goal items to get later. Once you have a few Exalt, this build will be great early on in the league for just gearing up, and you can swap over to a different character if you want to, or you can invest what you want into this character and clear the entire game extremely comfortably. Now, as for the skill tree, we are a Saboteur. I personally went with Pyromaniac first so that we could get some regeneration while we were leveling. This makes us immune to Ignite and Shock and also gives us a little bit easier time throwing mines. The next ability that I went for is Born in the Shadows. This gives us cannot be blinded, we take reduced damage from blinded enemies, and nearby enemies to us are always blinded, as well as chance to blind enemies on hit. So the idea is that your mines are still going to be able to take advantage of the things that say on hit, but if it says you gain something on hit, that is not going to work for you. Just keep that in mind. It's a little bit weird, but after that, we grabbed Explosive Expert. You might have noticed that my skitterbots have a little fire aura around them, and Explosive Expert is the reason for that. We get 30% to critical strike multiplier against burning enemies, and if you notice up here, we have summon skitterbots linked with Infernal Legion. This causes nearby enemies to them to be burning, so the skitterbots are now chilling, burning, and shocking nearby enemies, which allows us to take complete effect of all of this here. We get the damage penetration, we get the critical strike chance, and we get the critical strike multiplier, as well as the increased area of effect and the reduced area damage taken from hits. The last node that we get here is Bomb Specialist. This gives us a little bit of increased AoE, which honestly isn't great. The main thing that we're wanting from this is the mine throwing speed, as well as the increased detonation speed. Area of effect is not really something we want too much of on this build. We mainly want to focus on keeping the explosions small because we want all of those projectiles that come out to hit in one area. The tree is pretty simple. We are a dodge build is what we're going for. I decided not to go for Wind Dancer in this build. You could if you wanted to go a Kintsugi instead of the Comb's Heart, but I kind of wanted to do the Comb's Heart because it's ended up going to be a little bit cheaper in the long run because you won't have to worry about linking the Kintsugi or anything other crazy like that. But we did still go with dodge. We are still using the Quartz Flask. We do get a decent amount of dodge, but the main defensive layer is really going to be the fact that we blind enemies so heavily, as well as the fact that our Machina-Mitts are healing us so much. We do get a decent amount of life, but this is a very, very standard mine tree. You grab most of the mine nodes, you stretch across the tree grabbing life, crit, as well as power charges. We grab the staff crit here, the crit here. You could move into these staff nodes over here as well. That's where I would go next, as well as some jewel slots. That's pretty much it for the tree. It isn't anything special. It'll all be in the path of building. Let's talk about leveling a little bit. So leveling on this build is relatively simple. I would suggest that you start with Stormblast Mine, and you can take Stormblast Mine pretty much through the entirety of the game. If you're leveling this later in the league where you already have items, I do suggest that you try to get some items to increase the level of lightning abilities or fire abilities, whichever you want to do. You can actually use Astral Projector at level 40, so you can swap into it right then and there. Otherwise, I might suggest sticking with like Stormblast Mine and Orb of Storms very early on. Once again, all that leveling information will be in the path of building. This build is very simple to level. You can just put your detonate on left click and your mine on right click and just go. You don't really have to worry too much about it. But that's pretty much it. There's not a lot to talk about when it comes to leveling. Just focus on leveling with Stormblast Mine. Check out the path of building. It's got information on items and all kinds of stuff in there that you can use. And yeah, boys, a very, very insanely powerful build. One of the best bossers that I've played in quite some time. And with the addition of Astral Projector, it is insanely good for clear as well. So remember, guys, if you have further questions or you can't load up Path of Building, make sure that you join my Discord. The link is down in the description. It's the best way to get help with all of my builds, also to hang out with the community and me and the boys. Also remember that the Path of Building is the best place to get most of your questions answered. Make sure that you grab the community fork. It's all down in the description. The Pastebin is down there. Load that up, learn how to use Path of Building, and that is going to be your best bet for being able to use my builds. All right, boys, so I hope that you try this one out. It probably would be pretty good starter for the next league that's coming up, as well as the flashback league that we're supposed to be getting in December at some point. It also is an insane bossing character. If you've had issues with bossing in the past and you want to invest a little bit into getting like the Astral Projector, the Machina-Mitts, and the 6-link staff, this should be an easy, very simple bosser. Even just a 5-link would probably still do great as well. I cleared pretty much all of the bosses in the game. We killed Uber Elder, we killed Awakener 8 Sirius, Shaper, Elder, all that good stuff. Pretty simple, wasn't too big of a deal, and you can even kill them faster if you decide to invest a little bit more than I did. Remember, guys, if you enjoy my content, make sure to like this video so that more people can see it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this, and stay safe out there in raid class, and I'll see you guys in the next video.